What we have here is four pieces of Victorian literature built around the theme of hashish intoxication. In every case but one, these are American writers, Richard Burton being the exception. Hashish was introduced into Europe by the French, but it didn't ever attain in Europe in the 19th century the kind of vogue that it was to attain in the United States, largely due to the literary efforts of Bayard Taylor and Fitzhugh Ludlow. And in the readings we will hear, Fitzhugh Ludlow directly attributes his interest in hashish to the article by Bayard Taylor, which he had read a couple of years before his first hashish experiments when it was published in the Atlantic Monthly. There's a confluence of artistic and social intent in the American mind with the powers of hashish that seems extraordinarily serendipitous. In other words, the rich strain of American transcendentalism fueled by the pre-Raphaelite strain in literature and architecture seemed ready-made for the kind of sublime and ecstatic visions which these American Victorians were able to obtain from eating their hashish. There is nothing comparable to these kinds of visionary excursions in the modern practice of smoking cannabis products, because a much more diminished amount of the drug is delivered to the individual at any given time. If you notice, these descriptions of hashish intoxication are comparable to 20th century descriptions of intoxication with LSD or psilocybin, some of the stronger psychopharmacological agents. I don't think there can be much doubt that Romanticism, American Transcendentalism, the French fascination with the Orient in fashion and design and literature, all of these 19th century concerns, a general tendency toward the florid in design, in philosophical thinking, even in social forms, can in part be attributed to this strong orientalizing influence of which hashish was a major player. The Victorian literary style seems uniquely suited, especially in the case of Fitzhugh Ludlow, to conveying the confused, shifting, multi-leveled, and imagistic tonality that is typical of the hashish experience. So it's a very fortuitous marriage of style and subject matter that we meet in these four pieces, as I said, three by American hashish aficionados, and the exception being Richard Burton, whose pieces are drawn from his translation of The 1001 Nights, and show the influence of hashish on climaxed Islamic society, put through the filter of the fine job of translation that Burton did, a great Victorian traveler, polymath, and geographer in his own right. We had a dual motivation, my partner Kat and myself, in making these recordings. First of all, we thought that it was a sufficient challenge to the partnership ideal for a man and a woman to try to re-embody the writing of these Victorian hashish aficionados. Two of the writings accentuate the women's point of view, since Louisa May Alcott is one of the writers. And in the second case, Richard Burton's retelling of the 1001 Tales of Scheherazade is from a woman's point of view, uses a woman's voice. The other motivation for this project is the difficulty of obtaining printed versions of this material. There hasn't been an edition of Fitzhugh Ludlow since 1975. The previous edition was in the mid-1800s. There hasn't been an edition of Bayard Taylor since the first edition of 1853. So these materials are not available generally at your public library. And as the debate on the social impact of cannabis accelerates, it's very important that we have access to these accounts by unbiased early observers of the phenomenon.